My aunt stood in the center of Grandma's living room, her arms crossed and her voice sharp enough to slice through bone. "She stole from Grandma," Raina said. "She should be cut off. No inheritance. Nothing." No one argued. My Uncle Saul nodded. My cousin Mark stared at the floor like he agreed, but didn't want to be the one to say it. Even my younger brother Noah didn't speak up. The room was heavy with silence, the kind that swallows you whole, and I just stood there, frozen. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, not because I was angry, but because I couldn't believe it was happening. I wasn't a thief. I wasn't a liar. I wasn't anything they were saying. But in that moment, none of it mattered. The people I'd grown up with, spent holidays with, laughed with, were looking at me like I was a stranger. I could hear Grandma's old clock ticking on the wall behind me. Each second hit like a hammer. Raina's words kept echoing. She should be cut off. Cut off from the family, from the house I spent every Sunday in, from the woman who raised me when my own parents couldn't, from Grandma. And then, just as I was about to walk out, say nothing, take the pain and leave like I always did, Lena, Grandma's caregiver, walked in from the hallway. She was holding Grandma's phone in both hands like it was something sacred. "Your grandmother left a video message," Lena said, her voice low, steady. We all turned to look at her. For a second, no one moved. No one spoke. Even Raina froze. Lena stepped closer and looked right at me. "She told me to play it if this ever happened." She tapped the screen, and then Grandma's voice filled the room. "If anyone tells you I didn't trust her, they're lying. Here's what really happened." You could hear a pin drop. No one breathed, because Grandma's voice wasn't frail or confused like it had been lately. It was calm, clear, like she knew exactly what she was doing. And in that moment, everything started to unravel. I want to take you back to how we got there, to the afternoons I spent with Grandma when no one else came, to the moment the rings went missing, to the first time I realized that love and loyalty don't always look the same in every family. Because this wasn't just about missing jewelry. It was about being seen, being trusted, being silenced, and then finally, being heard. My name is Alina. I didn't steal anything. But I did keep a promise. And when the truth finally came out, it didn't just clear my name. It changed everything. My grandmother, Elira, was the kind of woman who made a room feel warmer just by being in it. She didn't speak much, but when she did, people listened. Her house always smelled like cinnamon and strong coffee, and no matter how old I got, I still felt 10 years old every time I walked through her front door. Safe, small, loved. Growing up, she wasn't just my grandmother. She was my anchor. After my father died when I was 15, my mom slipped into her grief like it was a cave. She was there, technically, but emotionally, she disappeared. Grandma stepped in quietly. She didn't make a big show of it. She just showed up. She made me dinner when my mom forgot. She helped me with homework. She left the porch light on if she knew I was coming by late. That's the kind of person she was. Steady, solid, present. Over the years, other family members started coming around less. Holidays became the only time they visited. But I kept coming. I didn't do it for a reason. I just loved her. I'd swing by after work, sometimes bring her groceries, sometimes just sit and listen to her talk about the past. She had stories that stretched generations. Sometimes I'd find her sitting in her armchair staring at an old photo, her eyes glassy, her hands folded in her lap like she was holding a memory too heavy to let go of. She started forgetting little things. At first it was names, then dates, then entire conversations. I kept track of her prescriptions and brought a whiteboard to list what day it was and what appointments she had. She used to joke, "You're my second brain now." I didn't mind. I liked being useful. I liked being needed. I never expected anything from her. Not her money, not her house, not her heirlooms. I just wanted to be around her for as long as I could. And as her health got worse, that feeling only deepened. I knew we were running out of time. Aunt Raina wasn't around much, but she always had opinions. Every now and then she'd sweep in like a gust of wind, loud, dramatic, and full of questions. She never asked Grandma how she felt. She only asked where certain things were. "Where's the pearl brooch? Did you move the silver flatware? Has anyone looked in the safe lately?" I'd watch Grandma's face tighten every time. She didn't like being treated like a museum exhibit. She was still a person, still alive. One Sunday, I found her sitting on the edge of her bed, holding two rings. One was her wedding band, worn thin over decades. The other was a ruby ring, her favorite. She handed them to me without a word. I asked why. She just said, "Keep them safe." I don't trust everyone anymore. I tucked them into my bag and never said a word about it to anyone. It felt like a secret only we shared. A week later, she collapsed in the kitchen. The doctor said it was a minor stroke, but she'd need round-the-clock care. That's when Lena came. Young, quiet, efficient. I liked her immediately. Grandma did too. She relaxed around her, trusted her. The rest of the family came out of the woodwork once they heard about the stroke. Suddenly, everyone had time. Suddenly, everyone was concerned. They held a meeting at Grandma's house while she was still in the hospital. I didn't even know about it until the morning of. Noah called and said Raina was taking control of things. That should have been my first warning. I showed up late. They were already in the living room, half drunk on wine and self-importance. Raina was holding papers, making accusations. She said Grandma's jewelry box was missing 2 rings. She said I was the last one alone with her. She said it with such confidence, like the truth didn't even matter anymore. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. It was like I had stepped into a play where everyone already knew their lines, and I wasn't in the script. Every face in that room looked like it belonged to someone I used to trust, and suddenly I felt completely alone. That was the moment everything shifted. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just about who Grandma trusted. It was about who she didn't. And that truth was about to come out. I stood in Grandma's living room surrounded by people I had known my whole life, and for the first time, I didn't recognize a single one of them. Aunt Raina was pacing across the hardwood floors like she owned the house. Her nails clicked against her wine glass every time she paused to emphasize a point. She held a printed list in one hand, her voice growing sharper with each word. 2 rings, she said, gone. Grandma's wedding band and the ruby one. You all know which one I'm talking about, the one she wore in every photo for 30 years. Her eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to challenge her. No one did. I checked the box myself, she went on, and who was the last one here alone? Alina. I felt every pair of eyes in the room turn toward me. My mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. My throat was dry, my chest tight. I looked at my cousin Mark. He looked away. I looked at Uncle Saul, who just shook his head like this was all some kind of sad misunderstanding. Noah stood behind a chair, his face unreadable. I didn't take anything, I said finally, my voice too soft. Grandma gave them to me. Raina laughed. Oh, please. Are we supposed to believe that? She's been forgetting what day it is for months. You expect us to believe she gave away family heirlooms without telling anyone? She told me to keep them safe, I said. She didn't trust... Raina cut me off. Exactly. She didn't trust you. She probably didn't even know what she was doing when she handed them over. And now they're missing. That's theft, Alina. Don't dress it up like some sentimental little moment. Her words stung, not because they were loud, but because they sounded rehearsed, calculated. Like she had been waiting for this moment, sharpening her knives behind closed doors. Let's not get emotional, Uncle Saul said, stepping in. This isn't about pointing fingers. We just want to know where the rings are, that's all. I looked around the room. No one defended me. No one asked for my side. My heart was pounding in my chest, not from guilt, but from the weight of being so alone in a place that used to feel like home. I reached into my bag and pulled out my keys. I didn't say a word. I started walking toward the front door. If they had already decided I was guilty, then there was no point in staying. Running away, Raina called after me. I stopped, turned around, and looked her in the eye. You're talking about Grandma like she's already gone. She's still alive. Maybe try respecting that. Before she could respond, Lena stepped into the room. She'd been standing quietly near the hallway, listening. She looked uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure if it was her place to speak. But something in her expression shifted when she saw my face. She held Grandma's phone in both hands. Alira recorded something a few days ago, Lena said. She asked me to keep it safe in case things got complicated. The room fell silent. Raina crossed her arms. What kind of video? Lena walked over to the center of the room. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at me, her face calm but serious. Then she looked at everyone else. She made me promise not to play it unless it was necessary. I think now is the time. She opened the phone, tapped the screen, held it up. I didn't know what was coming. I had no idea what Grandma had recorded, but I knew her. And I knew that if she had taken the time to leave something behind, it was for a reason. Everyone watched as the screen lit up. My grandmother appeared, wrapped in a shawl, sitting upright in her bed. Her hair was pinned back neatly. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were focused. She started speaking. "If anyone tells you I didn't trust her, they're lying." Gasps filled the room. Here's what really happened. My breath caught in my chest. The ground didn't shake, the house didn't collapse, but it felt like everything I had been holding in was suddenly breaking open. This wasn't just a moment. This was the beginning of the truth pushing its way through. Grandma's voice poured from the phone like it had been waiting, clear, deliberate, and stronger than we'd heard in weeks. "If anyone tells you I didn't trust her, they're lying," she said. No one moved. Raina stood frozen with her arms still crossed, but her face had shifted. She looked stunned, confused, like someone had pulled a rug out from under her feet. Uncle Saul leaned forward. My cousin Mark looked at the phone like it might bite. Grandma continued. "Alina has always been the one I trusted. I gave her my wedding ring and the ruby one. I didn't lose them. I wasn't confused. I asked her to keep them safe because I didn't want anyone else touching them, not while I'm here and not after." Lena turned the phone slightly so everyone could see the screen. Grandma sat with her back straight, her eyes steady, her hands folded in her lap. There was no doubt in her voice. She wasn't drifting in and out of clarity like she sometimes did toward the end of a long day. She was speaking with purpose, with fire. "She never asked for anything," Grandma said. "Not money, not gifts, not favors. She came because she loves me. And if you don't believe that, then maybe you haven't been paying attention." The silence that followed was unbearable. It pressed in on my ears like pressure underwater. My stomach was in knots, my fingers twitching at my sides. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but something else rose in me instead, a kind of heat, a strength I didn't know I still had. I looked at Raina. Her mouth was slightly open, but she didn't speak. She didn't look at me either, just kept staring past Lena like she was hoping to wake up from a dream she hadn't planned on having. Grandma's video wasn't finished. I'm recording this because I know how people get when money is involved. When death starts creeping close, people stop listening to their hearts and start counting what they think they're owed. But no one is owed anything. What matters is who shows up, who stays, who carries you when you can't carry yourself. The video ended there. Lena lowered the phone and held it against her chest like it was something fragile. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I looked around the room. The air had changed. There was no shouting, no arguing, only the kind of stillness that comes after something permanent has shifted. For the first time since I walked into that room, I didn't feel small. I turned to Raina. "Are we done here?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes met mine for the briefest second, then dropped to the floor. Uncle Saul cleared his throat. "I think we should all take a moment," he said. Maybe we should wait to talk about anything else until Mom's back home." Mark nodded. "Yeah, let's not do this now." The meeting fell apart without ceremony. People shuffled to grab their coats. No one looked me in the eye. The accusations hung heavy in the air, but the power behind them had crumbled. Noah stepped toward me as everyone started to leave. He rubbed the back of his neck like he wasn't sure what to say. "I didn't believe them," he said. "I just didn't know how to say it." I nodded. "You just did." He reached out and gave my arm a light squeeze. "Grandma was right. You're the only one who stayed." I walked to the kitchen while the house emptied. The window over the sink still had the little lace curtain Grandma hung years ago. The scent of coffee still clung to the air. I stood there and took a breath. Lena joined me a minute later. She set the phone on the counter and leaned her hip against the edge. "She recorded that the day after you brought her tea and read to her for 2 hours, she said. "She told me, 'People think I don't notice things, but I do.'" I turned toward her. "Thank you for playing it." She shrugged gently. It wasn't my truth to keep. I thought about how close I had come to walking away in silence. about how easy it would have been to just let them believe what they wanted. But sometimes love means standing still when you want to run. It means trusting that truth will rise, even if your voice shakes when you speak it. Grandma's voice had done what mine couldn't, but I wasn't done speaking yet. The next day, Grandma came home. She was tired but alert. Her speech was slower and she moved with more effort, but her eyes were still sharp. When Lena wheeled her into the living room, she looked around like she was measuring the temperature of the space, like she knew something had shifted. I sat beside her, unsure of what to say. I had already heard her voice deliver the truth with more weight than I ever could. But now she was here, in person, and I wanted her to know what it meant to me. Before I could speak, she reached for my hand. "You watched it," she said. I nodded. They all did. Her hand tightened around mine. Good. We didn't need more words. Everything we had to say had already been said through actions, through presence, through loyalty, through years of quiet connection. But not everyone was done speaking. Later that evening, the family returned. One by one, they filed back into the house with guarded expressions and forced politeness. Raina came last, wearing a tailored coat and a stiff smile that didn't reach her eyes. She approached Grandma, kneeling beside her chair, like the same woman who had stood over us yesterday hadn't called me a thief. "I'm glad you're feeling better, Mama," Raina said. Grandma stared at her. "Are you?" Raina blinked. "Of course." Grandma leaned back. "Then why are you lying to me in my own house?" The room went silent again. "I know what you did," Grandma said. "I know what you've always done. You twist things when they don't go your way. You manipulate. You mask it as concern, but it's control." Raina looked around as if searching for backup, but no one came to her defense. "You think love looks like managing everything, owning everything, but love doesn't demand power. It sacrifices for peace," Grandma said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. Alina was the only one who never asked me what I planned to leave behind. She just stayed. Raina stood slowly, her face flushed. "So what now?" "Are you cutting me out?" Grandma shook her head. I'm not turning into what you've become. I'm not rewriting my will in a moment of anger. You're still my daughter, but I see you clearly now, and that's something you'll have to live with." For once, Raina had no words. Grandma turned toward the rest of the family. "The ruby ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was the last gift your grandfather ever gave me before he died. It meant something. And I gave it to the one person I trusted to protect it. Not because of inheritance. Because of love." She looked back at me. "Thank you for keeping it safe." I didn't speak. I just held her hand tighter. Noah stepped forward. Can we start over?" he asked, looking at both Grandma and me. "I think we all lost track of what matters." Grandma nodded once. "That's up to each of you." There was no dramatic reconciliation, no big family hug, but something did begin to soften in that room. The tension eased. The performative smiles faded, replaced by something more honest. Even if it wasn't forgiveness, it was something close to recognition. Later that night, after everyone left, Grandma and I sat together in her room. Lena was finishing up in the kitchen. The house was quiet again, like it had taken a long breath and finally let it out. "I thought I lost everything," I said. Grandma smiled. "You never did." "I didn't know how to defend myself." "You didn't have to," she said. "Sometimes silence is louder than shouting, and sometimes the truth needs a witness more than a warrior." I reached into my bag and pulled out the little velvet pouch. I hadn't touched it since the day she gave it to me. "Do you want them back?" She shook her head. "They're yours now. Not because I'm leaving you anything, but because you earned them long before I ever gave them to you." I held the pouch in my palm, suddenly aware of how heavy it felt, not just in weight, but in meaning. This wasn't about jewelry, it was about trust and the quiet legacy of being seen. As I left her room, I knew things would never be the same, but they didn't need to be. After Grandma passed 3 months later, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a memory someone forgot to dust off. The curtains stayed closed most of the time. The kitchen was too quiet. The coffee pot was empty more often than not. I still visited during those final weeks. Not every day, but often. She couldn't always speak by then, but when she could, she'd squeeze my hand or tilt her head toward the window, asking silently to sit with her. We didn't talk much, we just shared space. And that was enough. When she passed, it wasn't a shock. Her body had been preparing to let go long before her spirit was ready, but even knowing it was coming didn't soften the weight of it. Losing her felt like losing the one person who never asked me to prove anything. She had already decided I was enough. The funeral was small, simple, just like she wanted. No long speeches, no dramatics, just her favorite hymns, her wedding photo on the altar, and the scent of the lavender she used to grow along the fence. I wore the ruby ring, not because I wanted anyone to notice, but because it reminded me that trust can live longer than a person. After the service, people came up to me, some with condolences, some with shame in their eyes. Mark apologized. So did Uncle Saul. Even Noah pulled me aside and said, I should have said something sooner. I told him it was okay. And maybe it was, or maybe I just didn't have the energy to stay angry. Raina didn't speak to me that day. She sat in the back, left early, and didn't make eye contact. I didn't expect her to. Some truths take longer to digest. Some never get swallowed at all. When the estate was divided, it was clear Grandma had left everything exactly as it was. No one was cut out. No one was punished. Her will was the same as it had been for years. It didn't reward loyalty with property or penalize greed with absence. That wasn't her style. She had already given me what I needed while she was alive. Some people thought I should have contested it. They said I deserved more, but I didn't want more. I wanted peace. The house was eventually sold. Lena moved on to care for another family. Noah went back to school. Life kept moving forward, even when I wanted it to stand still. One afternoon, weeks later, I opened a drawer in my apartment and found a sealed envelope tucked inside a book of Grandma's poetry. I didn't remember putting it there. I sat on the couch, opened it, and found a short handwritten letter. Alina, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you stayed. Of course you did. That's who you are. Don't let this family change you, not their silence, not their suspicion. You were never meant to shout to be heard. You were meant to stand still when others ran, to listen when others accused. That is not weakness. It is strength. Keep the ring, not for its value, but for the weight it carries. Let it remind you that love, when it's real, protects even in the silence. I'm proud of the woman you've become. I always was. Grandma. I read it twice. Then I folded it and placed it back in the drawer. Not everything needs to be framed or displayed. Some truths are just meant to be carried. I still miss her. I miss her stories, her scent, the way she'd say my name like it mattered. But I carry her with me now, in the way I speak, in the way I sit with people who need comfort, in the way I trust myself, even when others don't. This story wasn't about the ring. It was about knowing the difference between being heard and being understood, about how the quietest voice in the room can still hold the most truth, and about how sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to fight, and instead let the truth rise on its own. Grandma gave me more than a piece of jewelry. She gave me a voice I never thought I had, and now I finally know how to use it. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been misjudged by your own family or stayed quiet when you should have spoken up, I hope this gave you something to hold on to. Sometimes the truth takes its time, but when it shows up, it speaks louder than anything else. If this story meant something to you, take a second to like the video, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you have a story of your own about trust, about loss, about finding your voice, drop it in the comments. I read everyone, and I'd love to hear yours. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more real stories that speak to the heart. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the ones who see you for who you really are.